Now that August's restriction list has been set in stone, it's time to dive into testing decks in preparation for Bandai Card Games Fest in Dallas. There's less than 1 month before the event happens, and players are scrambling to make their deck work. In order to assist with players' preparation, I'm testing numerous decks as well that I think could be the deck to take to Card Fest this year. And what better way to start than the boogeyman himself, Megidramon Rush. While the restriction list did not touch growlmon X, in testing, Knocking Gravity Crush, Rush guilmon, and EX3 growlmon were some other elements that Bandai felt was necessary to make the deck more fair. And now the question, was it enough? Per the usual, I'll discuss my thoughts on some of these cards that were previously used and not used with the deck before jumping into some combos and closing out with the overall deck profile. You may agree with some elements, and others you might not. But remember, my deck profile videos aren't designed as, this is the only means to play the deck, but rather to take the guesswork out and move the goalpost closer for you to get to your final build. While 4 Gravity Crush was pivotal in giving you that extra boost in memory, honestly at this point, I felt that you could do away with that single copy as you won't have explosive turns and be able to keep turns sometimes. In early testing, your trashing capabilities have been somewhat reduced, and with only 1 guilmon, you'll typically only have at most 1 rush body while the other body just sits there. Comboed with the fact that the Digimon egg is purple, it makes running offense trainings less desirable unless you can guarantee the red source every time. That being said, I still run at least 2 of the offense trainings. In discussions with some of my local players who have been playing this deck, they'd argue that it's definitely good to see Gravity Crush even as a 1-of, but in preliminary testing, I found it unnecessary. To that end, I went mostly the memory boost route to assist with finding my primary Megidramon line. Starting with purple memory boost, this is one of the older memory boosts that has the widest search range. It can find any purple Digimon, which means it fails to find on cards like BT13 Gallantmon and Promo Gallantmon. But because your deck cycles and trashes so much, there's a lot of ways to get these cards back. For a secondary memory boost, you might consider Mist Memory Boost because it trashes the top 2 cards and then draws you a card. This one helps facilitate your trash because of the drop in EX3 growlmons. You're going to need to accelerate your trash somehow. But the last and final memory boost that this deck could run is Great Memory Boost. Because what better way than to find your best Gallantmon than Medieval Gallantmon? Functionally, memory boost might be something that you as a viewer and player might think can be countered easily. But do keep in mind that because of EX3 and BT21 growlmons, these Digimon can do with floodgates moving up your chain. The only downside is if you're locked at 1 memory, that's where it can get tricky, but this is where the occasional trainings can be very handy. Outside of the fixes for Gravity Crush, in searching across the lists, many players were already running 1 to 2 EX3 growlmons, and in regards to the Rush guilmon, there's nothing that absolutely replaces it. Which for this video, the combos for Megidramon remain predominantly the same. Starting in the back, you flip your egg, Digivolve into guilmon, and then start playing all the memory boosts. Turn 1, you set up a singular memory boost. Turn 2, maybe your opponent handed you enough memory to put down another 2 memory boosts, or maybe you only had enough to put down a training and a memory boost. Which means come turn 3, you're able to promote out, and then start some serious shenanigans. I'll concede here that if your opponent has a memory floodgate and you're at 1 memory, it can be tricky since you leave your entire stack exposed, and this is where the trainings can come in handy. But let's just say your opponent doesn't run memory floodgates. Let's just say you Digivolve Guilmon into Guilmon X and do a search. Now you Digivolve into Growlmon in order to attempt to delete an opponent's Digimon, and you don't, so you get to trash 2 cards. Going to Growlmon X means you can now draw 1 and trash an additional card, and spawn out a Guilmon if your stack is deleted. Additionally, you'll still have effectively 6 memory to play with from all the memory boosts and trainings, which means you can pop all your memory boosts to go up to 6 memory, or in other situations pop 2 memory boosts and then pop the delay to go into wargrowlmon. Wargrowlmon now attacks and can Digivolve simultaneously into Megidramon for a cost of 4, which puts your opponent to 1 memory. Keep in mind though that because of your inheritables, you can gain memory to retain turn. Megidramon rips 2 security, then self-deletes, which will trigger Wargrowlmon's effect to trash the top security card. You can then play back out a Guilmon who could have Rush, or you could use the cycle Guilmon for setting up your trash for other plays. For example, if you happen to have the option card the Digimon I designed out, when the board is completely cleared, you can bring back out a Wargrowlmon and then use it to Digivolve into a Gallantmon that had been sent to the trash. The basis of using the BT13 Gallantmon and Promo Gallantmon both assist in the fact that they have Rush, which means regardless, this is your pseudo-Rush Guilmon replacement. Ultimately, for the deck profile, it's very simple. For eggs, you're still running the Promo Geekymon. This card is the ultimate egg for the deck, considering you trash cards via the hand, and can potentially trash important pieces off of your chain through RNG means. Considering with Megidramon's self-deletion effect, it makes it that more potent. There's no other substitutions I'd suggest at this time, but if you have one, do consider leaving it in the comments. Level 3s with EX4 Rush variant now limited to 1, you've got of course the 4 copies of Guilmon X that supply you a memory when you delete an opponent's Digimon to gain 1 memory. Furthermore, to fill out some of the level 3s, I run one EX3 variant because it can delete floodgates as well and trash the top 2 cards of both players' deck. But I opted not to do more than 1 copy because of its high play cost. The last 4 are of course the newest Cycle variant, which can help you pitch a dead Guilmon, Growlmon, or Gallantmon card for 2 cards. Overall, it's not bad. The level 4s are also simple in that you run the mandatory 1 copy of EX3 Growlmon, but not only because it can trash both players' decks for reducing your evo cost with wargrowlmon, but also because you can delete another Digimon in play and nab another security check with its inheritable. Both this and the BT21 Growlmon have effect popping capabilities on floodgates, with the newer variant being able to trigger its effect on play and when digivolving. Though its on deletion assists with memory, and because Megidramon clears the board, no floodgate means you can trigger these safely. But last but not least is the Growlmon X, and while this card wasn't restricted, I can also see why it wasn't. Sure, its memory gain is conditional on deleting an opponent's Digimon, but now that Rush Guilmon has been taken out, there aren't a lot of good targets that can accelerate you to your win condition. Though do note that this effect is optional, so you don't necessarily have to play a Guilmon if you don't want to. For Growlmons, I went with an interesting spin on this. Of course, I'm utilizing the wargrowlmons that can digivolve into Megidramon. Another important aspect to mention is that if your opponent does have a Blast Evo target waiting for you, it might be valuable to raid into that target because of the retaliation this Digimon gains. I did briefly look at the wargrowlmon from BT12, but it didn't feel right necessarily because the reduction is only ever 1 memory. In a situation where I go into Megidramon, then that ruins the point of the inheritable, and this is more so aimed at Gallantmon X decks. Instead, the last slots are for wargrowlmon X, who can take advantage of the memory gains from the X variants, and also protect from being bounced, and gain some extra DP buffs in addition to some extra security checks. But for a 1-tech, the EX3 wargrowlmon actually came in clutch in some situations. In particular, when I digivolved off the Digimon I designed from trash in order to play back out the Rush Guilmon for an extra body. With both Digimon I designed, this also meant that I could climb into the BT13 Gallantmon and have 2 rush bodies. But this was a very niche situation. Level 6s, you run a ton. Outside of the 4 Megidramons, I did a 2-2 split on BT13 Gallantmon and Promo Gallantmon for their rush abilities. The BT13 variant can also be played if you control no Digimon at a reduced cost of 2 for every 5 cards in both players' trash. Meaning if you and your opponent have 70 cards between the 2 of you, that means it's free. Likewise, the Promo Gallantmon has a similar ability, but looks for a Digimon with 13,000 DP or more. Yours or your opponent's, at which it's a mandatory deletion. I like the Promo because it can also assist with recovery, but do be wary of cards left in the deck, and whether you have purple scrambles that can save you. And for the best protection this deck has to offer, the medieval Gallantmons. And while this deck has no tamers, there are also a crap ton of option cards. 2 offense trainings to find your red cards, in particular the Gallantmons, but they're not too important. The Mist Memory Boost to further assist with increasing your trash size, though you could opt for Purple Memory Boost instead if you don't want to randomly trash cards from the top. Great memory boost because it adds almost every Digimon in the deck, in particular, the medieval Gallantmons. And then of course you've got the delay options with Purple Scramble to help fix your deck if it hits 0 while your opponent has a Digimon in play when they pass turn. And the Digimon I designed, which cheats your Digimon into a Digimon in the trash when a Digimon is deleted. Again, Value Town. The last option card of course, going to Jack Raid. While there are questions why I'm not running the Gravity Crush, I do feel like this deck is less likely to OTK in a turn, and Gravity Crush will punish you hard when your opponent gets that extra memory if you fail to do so. Rather than increasing that risk, Jack Raid can be the option that gains me not just 1 memory, but potentially 3 or even 4. Overall, these are the preliminary changes I found with Megidramon post-restriction, and again, this list isn't a perfect example of what you can do with the deck, but rather showcasing what options you have to choose from. Will you be taking Megidramon to Bandai Card Games Festalis? Or will you be cooking something more diabolical? Tune in for more deck profiles this week, as I speed run through some of the top meta contenders before jumping to some new content. This is Digi-Panda, logging out.